This is a $1 bill. But what is a $1 bill worth to you? Your level of wealth in this world we live in can make a dollar seem massive or minute. Money isn't just money. It's access, freedom, impact, influence, and it can buy you anything you dream and hope for. For most, a dollar is a standard amount, an amount used to gauge worth. For the mega-rich elite, it's but a drop in the ocean. What if I told you that for every $1 you earned as a normal person trying to make your way in the world, billionaires gained roughly $1.7 million in the current global economy? It might sound crazy, but it's true. Even in modern times, with developed economies and capitalism common in most nations, a harsh reality remains. The world we live in is like a heaven for some, but equally a hell for others. The lucky ones, like royalty, tech bigwigs, and fancy brand bosses, live it up in luxury mansions and penthouse suites, attending lavish parties with their elite friends. Then we have the not-so-lucky, 689 million people. That's almost 10% of the world's whole population, who are living in extreme poverty on less than $1.90 a day. Almost 75% still live in villages and lead a life of physical labor to get by. Hardships and misery are common, and this is like a hell on earth for many people who aren't fortunate. Interestingly enough, the richest 1%, which by the way is anyone that earns more than $200,000 per year, and isn't just the hyper-rich billionaires, actually took 2/3 of new wealth created over the past 2 years. This is nearly twice as much money as the bottom 99% of the world's population. The rich seem to get richer, which in turn takes the wealth away from the poor, those who need it the most. It's no secret that in today's society, the quality of your life is very much measured in terms of your wealth. But is the economy rigged? Do the richest people on Earth simply want to keep it all for themselves, preventing the distribution of wealth from reaching those living in extreme poverty? This has resulted in what is very much a tale of two worlds. The world of the mega-rich, who want after nothing, live comfortable and carefree lives, and have whatever they want, whenever they want it. And on the other hand, the world of millions barely living at all in extreme poverty, struggling to survive. In this video, we will be exploring what life is like on both sides of the coin, and looking at the staggering gap between the richest and the poorest people in the world. While they exist simultaneously, the ultra-rich and the poorest of the poor live in what is almost different universes. The difference between what a millionaire can do and what someone living in poverty can do is quite disturbing, and the financial capabilities of a billionaire make even a millionaire look strapped for cash. In 2020, for the first time in 25 years, the level of extreme poverty in the world grew. Proportionally, the amount earned by billionaires continued to grow. After a peak, it saw a small fall in 2022, but the combined fortune of billionaires increased by $2.7 billion a day. The World Bank, who had hoped to put an end to extreme poverty by the year 2030, now admits that global progress in reducing extreme poverty has grinded to a halt. But the claiming of new wealth continues for the top fraction of 1%ers, and the mega-rich just continue to make money like it's going out of style. Millionaires might have luxurious homes and drive expensive supercars, But billionaires live in a world that is almost beyond imagination. We're talking about a world of extravagance and indulgence that is absurd to someone even earning a good and above-average salary. One insider article claims billionaires usually have a budget of around $80 million annually. That's 80 millionaires' entire net worth per year to spend. They use it to splurge on a variety of things: private jets, real estate investments, cars, priceless art, well, priceless to most, remote islands to call their own playgrounds, trips into space, and super yachts to travel the world as they please in absolute luxury. To put this in perspective, billionaires can spend an average of $220,000 per day. That's more than some CEOs earn in a year. Now, let's change that perspective. An extremely impoverished person has a budget of less than $1.90 daily. That's $219,998.10 less to spend than that of a billionaire each day. Let that sink in. That's an average of $694 a year for those in extreme poverty. To earn $80 million, a billionaire's yearly personal spending budget, it would take an extremely poor person approximately 115,274 years. Obviously, no one lives that long, even with all the money in the world. With an average life expectancy of just 55 years, the poorest human would actually spend less in his whole life compared to what a billionaire could spend in just a single day. Is this disproportion beginning to sink in yet? While the wealthy live a life of opulence, the poor struggle to make ends meet, living day to day in a constant state of uncertainty and desperation. The misery and pain of the poor is a harsh reality that is often ignored by those who have never experienced it. It is a world where every day is a battle for survival. Getting a meal every day is a test for an extremely poor family. Imagine waking up every morning not knowing if you will have enough food to feed your family. This is the harsh reality for millions of people around the world who struggle to put enough food on the table to sustain their families. Most of what they do eat is food that they have grown themselves. But that gets harder when you consider that 125 of the world's richest billionaires pump so much money into industries that pollute our world and are responsible for emitting an average of 3 million carbon tons a year. It's the rest of the world that suffers, facing dangerous climate change events like droughts. If the poor have a bad harvest, it means no food, but the billionaires don't even see it behind the closed doors of their mansions, closed off from the world, celebrating more capital gains from investments in the very businesses that are causing the poorest to lose an entire winter's food in the space of days or weeks of drought. Malnutrition, starvation, and hunger are daily realities for many poor families, especially in developing countries where access to clean water and reliable food supplies are rare and accessible healthcare is non-existent. Billionaires can rent multiple floors of hotels and entire restaurants for a meal, for any occasion they want, or just because they feel like it. They have their own culinary team that can import ingredients from across the globe daily, and chefs from literally any restaurant in the world to cook for them, no matter where in the world they are. They dine on gourmet meals, sip the finest wines, all while in exotic destinations that most people only dream of visiting. And they do it all in complete privacy, shielded from the prying eyes of the outside world, because they can afford to buy their privacy. For special events, that sort of money can rent celebrities, musicians, and Hollywood superstars. All it takes is a donation here, a payment of a few $100,000 into a project there, and any person's time and attention can be theirs on a whim. For those less fortunate souls that are lucky enough to be able to scrape together enough food to survive, there are still other challenges to contend with. Limited access to health care means that even minor illness can turn into life-threatening conditions. They are more likely to suffer from chronic diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and cancer, and are less likely to receive adequate treatment for these conditions or the medication to take the pain away. Our billionaire can buy all the medical care they or their loved ones need without flinching, accessing new cutting-edge medicines and treatments that the poor don't even know about yet. Think about your dream property. Now stop. Then imagine a house that makes that one look tiny and run down. Maybe then you'll get an idea of what the homes of the ultra-wealthy look like. Billionaires live in luxury houses designed by architects who are limited only by gravity and know no boundaries. From breathtaking views of the world's most tranquil and remote locations, beautiful excessive gardens full of immaculate plants and sculptures, horse stables, helipads for their private choppers, huge garages filled with luxury and limited edition supercars, private cinema rooms, ballrooms to host parties that live in most people's imaginations, and health spas. All are decorated in the most lavish finishings, gold plating, marble, and diamonds everywhere. Some of these extravagant homes are even designed and built to withstand natural hazards like earthquakes. Each residence also has a small army of specialized household staff to take care of everything. Running a home like that is almost on the same level of complexity as running a small to mid-sized business. It's safe to say that the quality of housing has major implications on people's health. A safe, warm, and comfortable home is crucial to being in good physical and mental health. It's a shame that this is really only a truth for the rich. The poorest people can't afford a decent home. Overcrowded, substandard housing, which poses a risk to health and physical well-being, is all they know. They stay in vermin-infested hovels with little or no access to basic amenities like clean water, sanitation, or electricity. This can lead to a range of health problems, including respiratory diseases, skin infections, and waterborne illnesses. These are things of little concern to the rich, who get to live their lives without even having to think about the choice between dehydration and cholera. When you reach billionaire-level wealthy, perspectives change. Life becomes less about having more, spending more, and living in more luxury. There comes a point where you've covered all these bases. Instead, the desire moves on to wanting exclusivity, seeking out the rarest expensive items. Whether it's a $500 million yacht, a $450 million Leonardo da Vinci painting, or even a $160,000 limited edition diamond pen. Billionaires often hire someone to seek out the most extravagant version of an item that can be found, and to secure it for them. There are even businesses that specialize in brokering these deals. However, the extremely poor aren't hustling to become the next billionaires, fueled by a desire for more expensive or exclusive things. They just want to get by without worry. They take what they can get. Pre-loved clothes, handed down from family members or picked out of the trash. No regard for how exclusive it is. Just thankful that they have anything to wear at all, even faded, ripped clothes on their back to keep them warm. It's worth saying again that billionaires can easily buy a simple pen that costs more than a whole family living in poverty can hope to make in a lifetime, without even blinking. The pain and suffering of the poor go beyond just physical ailments. They also face a range of social problems, including violence, crime, and exploitation. Women and children are particularly at risk, with high rates of domestic violence, sexual abuse, and trafficking. They may also face discrimination based on their gender, ethnicity, or religion, making it even harder to escape poverty and achieve social mobility. For the 25% that are able to get jobs working in the city, they entrust their children to others back in the village. They entrust them to old people, especially grandmothers, whose bodies are eroded by a hard life in the village, carrying out manual labor and raising their own families. Children may even have to work to help support the family, meaning that they miss out on school and fall behind in their studies. Without an education, their prospects for a better future are limited, perpetuating the cycle of poverty and inequality. In fact, all over the world, the huge disparities in wealth translate into comparable disparities in political influence. The wealthy have so much influence over politics and the poor very little. This is due to campaign contributions and personal financial rewards for politicians who support their interests. Wealthy people have access to politicians in a way extremely poor people just don't. In addition, they also have the vast majority of financial products that are out of reach for regular people. One reason the rich get richer is that they have access to investments and ways to avoid things like taxes, loopholes in the law that extreme poor have never heard of. The rich get access to private banks in foreign lands where tax doesn't need to be paid at all. They never wait on hold for a banker to pick up the phone. They get same-day access to their deposits and lines of credit. All of that influence, all of that power, driving the political decisions in the world, it all seems to focus itself on the greed of wanting more, and leads to laws and policies that actively stop the poor from escaping the cycle of poverty, ensuring that they continue to toil for nothing, only to further line the pockets of those who are lucky enough to share that 64% of the world's overall wealth between so few. With little or no access to documentation and identification, it's quite difficult to have influence. Those in poverty often don't participate in democracy, if they're lucky enough to live in a country that isn't ruled with an iron fist by dictators. Our modern ideals say that all people, no matter how rich or poor, should be equal. But in practice, a small minority of the top 1% are more equal than the rest of us based on the distribution of wealth. Because of their wealth and connections, the wealthy can influence big changes in the world, and that's not just on a political level. This is because they can buy impact. Some billionaires choose not to spend all of their time trying to become richer. Through philanthropy and charity, they decide to administer their wealth to try and build bonds and relationships across the barriers of wealth. They use their money to change the lives of the extremely poor, providing things like clean water and secure housing, as well as funding schools and hospitals. Instead of keeping it all for themselves, they seek to share some of their wealth. In fact, usually the smallest amount. To them, $1 million is but a drop in the ocean. But that same $1 million to 1,000 people living in poverty is $1,000. When we go back to the start, understanding that they would otherwise earn $1.90 a day, it would take them several years to earn that kind of money, not to mention the need to spend to survive. Saving just isn't an option when you have nothing left to save. This shows there is hope out there, and if more of the world's wealthiest sacrifice just a tiny amount of their own worth to give back to the poor, the world might be a happier place for all. The purpose of this video was to shed light on the disparities between the extremely impoverished people in low-income regions of Asia and the Pacific, Africa, Latin America, and the least developed countries, as compared to the wealthy population around the world. If you enjoyed this video, or learn something about the distribution of wealth in the world today, make sure you hit subscribe and press the bell icon for future videos that are on the way. Thanks for watching till the end. You are a legend. See you next time. Cheers. Stay uplifted and inspired, because this is the Inspired Class.